unapologetic, unadulterated, uncompromising. This is the blackchannel.net radio. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. And welcome back to the home, the haven, the stronghold, and the super fortress of intelligent black thought. Your refuge from insanity and mundanity. Your sanctuary from low IQs and low expectations. And we are glad to have you with us here tonight. I wasn't going to broadcast tonight. I actually wasn't going to. I've got so much going on over here right now. I actually wasn't going to be broadcasting tonight, but there were a few things I did not have the opportunity to touch on last night, and for that reason, I decided that I better carve out some time tonight to at least make the attempt to speak on those things. And some other things have come to mind for me as well, so wanted to go ahead and have an opportunity to try to catch up and touch on as many of those things as I can. So we're going to go ahead and try that here tonight, because this is a place that specializes in answers. We are really the only one that does what we do in long format the way that we do it. Now, another thing is, for my mods here tonight, this will be very, very important for me. If there are people in my chat room who are just sitting and haven't reposted that the broadcast is on, I want them out. This is not the place for spectators. This is not the place for people who just want to hang out, and this is not a place for people who do not know what they believe. So, for everybody, for my mods here tonight, we'll be doing a little bit of a check here in just a little bit. And everybody who's on board, we're going to go ahead and see about leaving them here. But everybody who's just hanging out, we got to go ahead and we're going to help out the people who are just hanging out. So that is what we're going to be doing here tonight, because this is good information that we give. It's not just good information, it's actually useful information that we give. Most people cannot do this. The reason that the Black Channel does not sit around talking about relationships endlessly. We don't endlessly drone on about relationships. And the reason that we don't endlessly drone on about relationships is because that's not really helpful. In all honesty, prattling on for months and months about relationships, that's not really helpful. Your ability, or lack thereof, to get a date is not going to really make any cataclysmic changes in black society or black society's condition. The quality of the person that you procreate with, of course, that does matter. Of course, that's germane, the quality of the person that you are associating with. But the subtle nuances in between. TBA, I dated a hood rat and now she's pregnant with our third baby, but I want out. What do I do now? That's not really crucial and critical to black society. You might just need to spend the rest of your life taking care of your babies and making sure that they get a better start than you did, because you screwed your chance up and destroyed it. And maybe you should just spend your life making sure that your babies don't destroy their lives the way that you did. Maybe that's what you're destined to do. But we don't need to sit here and go on about it week after week after week. We don't need to do that. That's unnecessary. Unnecessary and unwarranted. This is a place that actually gives you actionable and useful information that you can use. Now, most other people cannot do this. You've had some who tried, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work because they don't actually have the knowledge. A lot of them fail, and you can immediately identify them. You know you're dealing with frauds and con men when they don't have a stable set of principles with which they base the things that they speak about. And that's how they fail and are identified so easily. This is a place that has stood the test of time and withstood scrutiny from every single direction, because we don't do that. We don't have to rely on that. We rely on real things. That is why we do not end up going in useless directions. This is a place where we tell you the truth about things. We don't focus on relationships. We focus on empowerment. You see, the great sin of the civil rights generation was that they did not then and do not now focus on black empowerment. Black empowerment was completely and totally removed from the table for the civil rights generation. They do not care for it, and that is why they do not speak to you, their children, about black empowerment. You notice they don't speak to you about that. They speak to you about all the things that would make you a better tool of servitude to white people, not one that makes you more powerful within yourself. Did you get that, everybody? Let me repeat that for those of you who did not understand it precisely. Your parents have conditioned and indoctrinated you with all of the characteristics necessary to make you into a better tool of servitude to white society. They did not condition you to gain power within and of yourself. They removed empowerment from the table for themselves and for you, their children. And I'm telling you that you need to find your way back to the light again. Because your parents failed. When it was time to meet the challenge of white supremacy, your parents cowered in the corner. And they lied to you today and tell you that they were not cowering, but in reality, they were. You see, when your parents teach you that the way to defeat white supremacy is by getting a degree so you can get a good job, what do they just tell you? How do you defeat white supremacy when your ultimate goal is to go to work for the very forces that you claim you were supposed to be liberating yourself from? How can you be both employee and ruler? How does that work? How does a person become both employee and ruler? How does that happen? You see, they are going to tell you that you can be employee and ruler, and that is not going to occur, people. That is not going to occur, not now and not ever. You are never going to be able to do that. But your parents have attempted to deceive you into thinking that you can be. That you can get a job working for someone, and that your job working for them, a job working for another person, will give you power above that person. Now that's at best. At worst, your parents taught you that you didn't need to have more power than that other person. That it was okay for that other person to have more power than you, because this world doesn't matter and Jesus will provide. Starting to get it now? Starting to make sense with what I said before? That they gave you characteristics that made you better tools of servitude. Not enough? They taught you to buy everything and own nothing. That you are to be the customer in someone else's store, just like you are to be the worker at someone else's business. but that you are never to have your own, because that will make you a target of white supremacy if you actually own the means of production. You see, I teach my children to be weak, to bow down, don't challenge the structure, and nothing is more threatening to white supremacy than for you to have control of the means of production yourself. Nothing is more threatening to them. Nothing. And that's why they taught you that you shouldn't do that. Because the young people of today are not the lily-livered cowards and the heartless, gutless cowards that their parents were. They're not the heartless, gutless cowards that their parents were. And that is why the young people of today are hungry and are desirous to challenge white supremacy, but their old bastard coward parents are telling them don't. The ministers are out there in the streets saying don't. Your cowardly parents and your teachers, your ministers, your civil social organizers, you know, like Barack Obama, they're telling you don't challenge them. They are never telling you in clear and concise and precise terms who the enemy is and what you should be doing about it. They never say that to you. Never. Because the goal is not in their minds. Understand, your preacher is not trying to overthrow white supremacy. He wants a place in the system of white supremacy. Your teachers are not trying to overthrow white supremacy. They want a place in the system of white supremacy. Your co-workers do not want to overthrow white supremacy. They want a place in the system of white supremacy, and they are attempting to pressure and duress you into lowering your standards and expectations for yourself so that you too seek to only adopt a place in the system. Not that you have power over the system, but that you simply try to find a way to become a part of their system. And from there, once you have agreed to become part of their system, how do you become part of their system? By being weak and powerless. Once you adopt behaviors that make you weak and powerless, that's how you end up with a Ferguson. That's how you end up with an Eric Garner. That's how you end up with a Trayvon Martin and a Jordan Russell Davis and a Sean Bell and an Oscar Grant and an Amadou Diallo and an Abel Lawina. You're getting the damn point now? That you ended up with them because you were weak and powerless, and people who are weak and powerless are easy prey, and the people who always get knocked off first are the easy prey. Bullies don't go after strong people. Bullies go after the weak. They go after those who don't have allies. They go after those who don't have resources. So if you want to know how you ended up with cops gunning you down unarmed, it started by the fact that you own nothing, control nothing, and have nothing to pass down. Because when you are poor, you are a part of the system. You have no power over the system. And if you have no power over the system, then your life can only exist as a victim of the system. Because when the system decides to come after you, you have no way to stop it. That's why. That's why. This is the BlackChannel.net radio program, the only one of its kind on planet Earth today. They sold you the lie that salvation lay in integration. Now that is another form of seeking A, validation, and B, protection. If I can demand that white people, if I can demand to be a shopper at a white store, then that is equality. They fooled you into believing that you have to have social equality. that you must start having social equality, and that alone is going to lead you to where you need to be. That if you can acquire social equality to be able to stand physically next to non-black people, then that constitutes empowerment. Don't you know that standing next to another person don't have a damn thing to do with whether you're empowered or not, but they had an inferiority complex, and like Sigmund Freud would tell you, they passed their insecurities down to you. Slavery and thus Jim Crow created inferiority complexes in black people, and there were several mechanisms that were put into place by them for the purposes of creating a social condition where you felt inferior. We put up signs that said no blacks allowed. What that conditioned you to think was that there was something happening behind that door that was great, that was special, that was unique, that was novel, that was, dare I say it, supernatural. That is what they taught you to believe when they said no blacks allowed. That there was something divine and supernatural beyond your comprehension that was happening behind that door. That's why you've got so many black males today who have done what black men have always done since slavery. They bow and they worship at the feet of white women. But the reason for that is for the same reason as the sign above the door that said no blacks allowed. They put a sign on their daughter's underwear that said no black males allowed. What did that condition you to believe? It conditioned you to believe that there was something special, there was something great, there was something supernatural happening in the panties of non-black women. You see, your women's underwear was always available. So you thought, well, nothing special going on there. They told you that their women's draws were off limits, and thus you immediately put an immense social and dollar value on their women's sexuality. You put a dollar value on their women's sexuality. You put a dollar value on it simply because they told you you could not have it, and you assumed there must be something extra special going on there. And I am not validated as a human being until I have conquered that mountain. And that's why you've got so many black males out here, even after they spent years criticizing crystalline and the beyond black and white bed wenches. As soon as they got a black female, they went around dancing like cheerleaders. Why? Because they spent their whole lives in inferiority. And that's how they got here. And now they act like they climbed Mount Everest barehanded. They act like having a non-black female is like they went to Mars without a space shuttle. Just flapped their arms and flew to Mars. Take a look at what I did. And that is what they taught you. That is what they did with you. That is what they conditioned you to think, was that they used the same technique, the same gimmick that they used over the water fountains, at the schools, at their country clubs. Brothers and sisters, what mystical and magical is happening at a country club, at a white country club? They said you're not allowed. And what is mystically, magically happening there? Do you know? Let me explain a few things to you here, okay? There's nothing supernatural going on over there, but these people understood the power of exclusion. They understood that simply by saying that people were excluded, you have generated power. The quickest way to generate and engender power is by defining for people who cannot enter, what you will not do, who is not allowed. That is the quickest way to first solidify the foundations of power. By saying who it is that and what it is you will not allow. That's the first step to engendering power in yourselves. That's the first step. And that is what they did. They made you believe they were powerful simply by exercising their power to keep you out, even though they were keeping you out of something that really wasn't anything special. But the fact they could keep you out, they played you like a bunch of dumbass little ignorant elementary kindergarten children that they said you can't enter, and you immediately assumed they won't let me in. Must be something super special. I must get in. I must get in. I must get in. I will fight. I will kill. I will die to have access to what they are keeping me out of, even though I have been unable to verify or validate the value of what it is they're keeping me out of. I can't tell you what it is. I can't tell you what it does. I can't tell you how it works. I can't even tell you if it's really even there. I am willing to fight and kill and die for something, and I cannot even tell you if it's real. I can't even validate for you if it truly exists, but my inferiority now dictates that I must achieve it. I must. And they taught you as their children that your validation as human beings is directly tied to whether you can climb the mountains that they fail to. And that mountain is simply find the nearest white person to snuggle next to. Find the nearest white person to stand next to in line at the bank, at the club, at the store, at the school. Do whatever you have to. But mom, but dad, what if they try to hurt me? Fight! But understand that the people you're fighting are the people that you're trying to stand next to? Wait a minute. That sounds like a damn trick bag. So I am being told that I must fight the people that I'm trying to stand next to? But if I need to be standing next to them, why the hell I gotta fight them? Because your parents passed their inferiority down to you. And now you have become a receptacle of all of their insecurities and anxieties. And that is why you are fighting for designer handbags, because your parents did not teach you that you have value in and of yourself. You are fighting for things made by non-black people because your parents never taught you the value in and of yourself. That you don't have to fight them for their handbag, make your own. You don't have to fight them for their schools, make your own. You don't have to fight them for their car, make your own. They did not teach you this. And because they did not teach you this, you don't actually believe it today. And that's why you are fighting for other people's property instead of owning and making and creating your own. There is no reason your parents should have taught you that you don't need their club, their bags, their cars. You will make your own, and yours will be 10 times better than anything they make. It'll be 10 times better. Now that is what you do when you are serious about teaching your children how to develop power on their own. And once you do that, your children are not looking to have somebody else validate them. And that is how you gain power, people. That's how you gain power. You don't have to buy a Gucci and Fendi bag. You make your own, and it's 10 times better. What is the most coveted and desired supercar in the world today? Of course, the Bugatti Veyron. That is why I study that car so in depth. Because that car is not simply a masterpiece of pricing. It is a masterpiece of marketing and social engineering. Because 10 years ago, the car, for the last 30 years, the car that everybody wanted ever since those Cannonball movies, the car that everybody wanted was the Lamborghini. Ferrari was always a close second, but the car everybody wanted was the Lamborghini. And Lamborghini ruled the roost. And there were cars that people charged more for eventually, but they never could gain this mystique of Lamborghini. When you said Lamborghini, you said it all. You said sexy, you said sleek, and you said damned expensive. And for 3 decades, Lamborghini ruled the yard. But in the last 10 years, Bugatti, through the Veyron, has overthrown Lamborghini in prestige. They've overthrown them. They've topped them. They topped them. How did they do that? Because when Volkswagen acquired Bugatti, Volkswagen wanted to reinvigorate that nameplate. So they used Bugatti as their testing subject to create a brand new type of supercar. And they started out with one goal. We want a car that can get up to 250 miles per hour. A car with 1,000 horsepower in the engine. They created brand new processes. Everything from welding together 2 V8 engines to create they put together 2 V8s to create a W16. Massive. Massive. They had to create whole new engineering processes in order to construct this car. The set of tires alone runs you over $15,000 for a set of tires. That's just the tires. They've built less than 1,000 of them. Originally, it's supposed to be like 300. I'm pretty sure they've cleared that number by now. They're actually getting ready to start on the next generation. But why? Why did they do all this? Why did they go to all that? Because they wanted to clear the board. They wanted to clear the table. The Germans wanted to show the world that Germany is still the apex predator when it comes to automotive engineering. That's what they wanted to show the world. That you thought during World War II that our Mercedes and Porsches were the best we could do, you ain't seen nothing. They built the most technologically advanced car on the face of the planet. And now it doesn't matter if they never get invited to another American car show, because all you have to do is pull up with the Bugatti. You pull up with the Veyron, and everybody knows that that is a car that simply blows the doors off of anything else on any dealership lot anywhere on earth. Simply annihilates them. They don't feel inferior to anybody. And you know why? Because they will sit down any day of the week and go head to head, toe to toe, blow for blow with anybody on earth and knock them out. Knock them clean to Mars. That is how you teach your children to have pride in themselves. The Germans ain't trying to stand next to nobody. They want to stand alone. They don't want to be at the top of the class. They want to be in a class by themselves. And to be totally honest with you, you cannot rate or measure the Bugatti next to any of the metrics that you use for any other car. This car has metrics that stand by itself. Question: Why is it that black people have not used the same thing? We're not happy ruling the NBA. We only consider the NBA valuable if we have white men to bow to. If there were no white owners in the NBA, 95% of the black players in the NBA would get up and leave and go to an inferior basketball league, simply because they want a white person to bow to. Oh, I know that upset a bunch of folk when I said that. Let me say it again. Over 90% of your black basketball players, if the league became black owned tomorrow, they would get up and leave and go to an inferior ball league simply so they would have white people to bow to, because they don't consider it to be valuable unless they have a white person to bow to. They don't consider it valuable. And the idea that something can be valuable and can have value, not only can have value, but can have intrinsic value head and shoulders above everything else, is foreign to them. Totally foreign. And that is why we are lagging behind, because we've told ourselves that integration and empowerment are the same thing, and they are not. So when you come to a place like this that actually teaches the terrifying concept that as a black person you could have excellence, that actually offends a bunch of black people. They are so mad that they will kill you if you tell them that they can excel over other people. There are many black people, and I would dare say most black people, that if you tried to push them and say, yes, you can excel over them, they would actually rise up to kill you for telling them that they don't have to bow any longer. They are so conditioned and accustomed to bow that they now cannot picture or conceive their lives without it. They can't envision a world that they are not down on their knees bowing. They just can't envision it. They can't. And that is why we as black people need to understand that empowerment is not something that you get from outside of yourself. It is something that you get from within yourself. You do not gain power by bowing in front of other people. You gain power by standing for yourself. Now, I want you all to do a little experiment for me, will you? If you are people who claim to be honest about something, I want you to conduct a little experiment tonight. If there are people out there who claim that they know what we know here at the Black Channel, if you have people out there that you think, because you want to tell yourself that bowing and scraping to con men and frauds and con artists is what you need to do, what I want you to do is the next time one of them is out talking, call them up. Call them up and just say, hey, I can't stand the Black Channel and I want you to prove you're smarter than they are. Tell me step by step how to start my own business. Don't give me generalities. I want to start a business in bookkeeping. I want to start a business in automotive. I want to start a business in floor cleaning. I want to start a business. Okay, if you don't know about that, tell me about a type of business that I can start and take me step by step through the process. Tell me. Tell me. You do that. You try that. And see what kind of response these people give you. They will hem, they will haw, they will tell, if they're honest, they will just simply tell you, oh, I don't do that. And my question to all of you at that point is, what in the hell are you still doing listening to them then? He can't give you any information you can act on. If they can't give you information that you can act on, that's your fault if you sit there and keep listening to them. That is your fault if you sit there and do not listen to them. If you sit there and keep listening to them, that's going to be a problem. That is what you need to understand about the people that you listen to. Have to do a little house cleaning here in my chat room. Thank you very much. Now, the idea that you can excel is foreign to most black people, and is foreign to most black people because the Faustian bargain that was accepted during integration was the concept that you don't build anything else yourself. Your sole reason for existing, your sole reason for existing is for the purposes of making other people happy with you. Then you come to a place like this. Then you come to a place like this, and then you realize that that is the problem, is you. The problem is you when you're not building. But then again, most black people have gotten it into their minds that they don't have to build anything anymore, and that is the greatest shame that we could encounter. The greatest shame that we can encounter is somebody who tells their children that you don't need to build anything. I was talking to someone earlier today and they were asking me, TBA, why is it that so many of these black males out here are dusty and bummy? And I explained to them that the reason that that is the case is because a person gains value in their lives from what they have accomplished. That is what validates you, is what you have built, what you've accomplished as a man. That is what validates your existence. But what if you haven't ever built anything? What if you're not trying to build anything? How do you validate yourself? Well, at that point, if you don't have any accomplishments to validate yourself with, you retreat into yourself. You retreat back into yourself and you attempt to validate yourself with the only thing that you do have power over: sex. And I've got power over my arms, my legs, and my genitals. So now they have attempted to elevate having sex to building skyscrapers. This brings in your happy hotep, black woman is God. I don't have clothes on my back, but take a look at all the hoes I took to bed. Those black males, that's where they come from. Because the innate, intrinsic, biological requirement and imperative to build and accomplish does not go away. It doesn't go away. That does not go away. So if he cannot build skyscrapers, then he will build hoes. And this is why you've got so many black males out here today. When I say build hoes, I mean it the way I said it. This is why so many black males out here today are impregnating females. They cannot take care of her. They don't have a job. He has no money. He has no means. He can neither protect nor provide for her. But getting her pregnant is his accomplishment. Turning her into a hoe is what he has accomplished. That is what he did. That is what he built. That is what he created. He created a hoe. And he's telling all of you that this hoe is the best thing since ice water. That's what he's telling you. Now, then you meet somebody like me who says, no, not only is that not the best thing you could be doing, that's not even manhood. What the hell? They meet somebody like me and it throws cold water on everything that they were thinking about doing. You see, I don't invalidate people's lives. I don't invalidate people's lives. Their behavior does that. Their behavior does that. When you haven't built anything, that is what occurs. That's what occurs. And a place like this that actually holds people to a standard is foreign to them. But you know how pathetic it's gotten? It's gotten to such a point of pathetic behavior that these guys today are sexually frustrated, and they're sexually frustrated because they can't even build hoes. They can't even build hoes. So they become attention whores. When you can't create a whore, you become one. And that's why you got so many black males out here today cooning and buffooning, setting themselves on fire. This is why they gravitate to the fraud, because people with no accomplishments gravitate together so that they can, and their accomplishment becomes, well, we got together. But when you ask them about building, when you ask them what they built, when you ask them to help you build something, all of a sudden the room gets quiet, and most of you still accept someone who is totally fraudulent and been invalidated because you don't want someone holding you to the standard that you should be building something. So you gravitate to morally, intellectually, financially, and socially bankrupt people. Because you yourself are bankrupt. You yourself are bankrupt. And that is why you gravitate to them so easily. Because that's what you're accustomed to. I don't have to cheat. I do not teach or preach integration nor segregation. I teach and preach empowerment. I talk about empowerment. Therefore, it does not matter whether the society is integrated or segregated. We are powerful no matter what day of the week it is. These are complete foreign concepts to many of these people. Completely foreign concepts. Completely foreign. And that's why we're holding you to that standard. Because there comes a point in time in history where we stop being broke and bummy and start being powerful. And I'm saying that that time in history has come now. If you want the 21st century to look different from the previous 5, then that's all going to be contingent upon what you're going to do differently than what we did in the previous 5. Because in the 21st century, we are being attacked on all levels. And as I said it years ago. I said it years ago. This is why I posted up the stories we did yesterday and the one about Kevin Sorbo. If you'll all remember, 4 years ago, I told you and predicted to all of you that things were about to change. That you were going to see white people as a group across the board begin to identify themselves as white. All of a sudden, you were going to start seeing the spread of a white nationalism. But that it would manifest itself in the form of white people doing something that they had not been doing for the previous century. All they had to do is just say, we're Americans. Today, they are shifting it to a more hardline rhetoric. They are after telling you and I for centuries that we're all just Americans. There's no need for you to identify yourself as black. No need for African American. I thought we were all just Americans. But they are now openly identifying themselves as white. And that this would not go away. It would only increase. And as their numbers continue to diminish, the incidence of them identifying themselves as white will spike. And that is exactly what's happened. The incidence of them identifying themselves as white has escalated. And will continue to do so. Because that is what gained them power in the first place, is identity. And they tricked you through shame and integration to tell yourselves that you can gain power by refusing to adopt an identity. Meanwhile, they do everything in their power to embrace an identity while they have sold you the false bill of goods that you don't actually need one. His identity can be your identity. He told you that his identity could be yours. That they could be interchangeable. But do you notice that when we talk about white culture, it always has a white face? That's the way power works, people. What is the reason? White people understand the power of culture. They also understand the power of supplanting cultures. They protect their culture jealously. Black people give their culture away at the first glance because we don't consider anything to be valuable if a white person is not intimately involved, and we don't just want them involved, we want them in control. We want them to own it, because the only way that we know that what we have is valuable is if a white person is willing to buy it from us. Once we got that, oh, I know it's really valuable. A white person showed up to give me money for it. But they took what you had is more valuable than what he had. Yeah, man. Did you see the way that he really liked me there? Did you see the way he was grinning at me? He really liked me. But now you've lost everything. I didn't lose everything. I gained his admiration. That's the way that the average black person thinks about these things. A pat on the head is more valuable than money to the average black person today. And when they encounter non-black people, a pat on the head is more valuable than money. They have reduced you to a childlike and even dog-like intellectual status, and you must remove it. When white people build their cultural constructs, they stamp it with their imprimatur. They stamp it with their image. They stamp it with their cultural identity and will not allow you to move it. They take possession of cultural things. That is why they want rap music. They want possession of it. They want to remove us from it. Why? Because that's the way that power and conquest works. They removed us from rock and roll. They've been trying to remove us from the blues and jazz. They've just about done that. Now they're moving in on hip-hop and R&B. This is a never-ending world war to erase the presence of African people, not only from the present, but from our past. They started with the past first by attempting to reimagine Egypt as a white civilization. They got stopped in their tracks by Dr. John Henry Clark, Joseph Ben Jochannan, and Frances Cress Welsing. No wonder coons hate her so much. She took away massa for you to bow down to. They'll dance a jig if a white person, particularly a white female, pats them on the head, they dance a jig. No wonder they hate Dr. Wilson so much. And you see, when you co-opt and take over a people's past, the person who controls your knowledge of the past controls your identity. And if a person controls your identity, they control your destiny. And a people without an identity, a people without a past, do not have a future. A people without a past do not have a future. That is why gods of Egypt and Exodus and Cleopatra, that is why all of those things matter to the extent that they do. We can't stop these studios from making them, but we can speak out and we can make our own movies that show correctly what occurred. But we should never allow these assaults on black people and our black identity to go unresponded to. We should never allow that to happen. If they control your past, they control your identity. And if they control your identity, they control your destiny. And that is why control of our past and the knowledge of our past has been so crucial. They took us into slavery, and by the second generation, we didn't even fight them anymore because they told us that we did not have a past. They told us that our lives began right there on the plantations with them. That was what they told us. They told us that our lives began on the plantation with them. No wonder you never fought them. You never fought them because you believed that that was all that existed, was the plantation. He controlled your past, and that controlled your destiny. Because you did not conceive of an identity outside of his. Power and ownership are crucial. Absolutely critical. And if you want to know why the people who dance a jig hate it so much, that's why. You see, as Africans, when you have an identity as a people, it manifests itself and exhibits itself all around you. There were a lot of you who were shocked last week when I actually made the suggestion that, you know, in Ferguson, places like that, we ought to have a black grocery store, a black, modern, up-to-date, fully stocked 21st century grocery store, and one that is built in a way and in a manner that reflects African sensibilities. The store should be built and designed to reflect our heritage and the design aesthetics of us as black people, as we as Africans. That is what that store should reflect. You see, when you look at the Burj Khalifa, that skyscraper is built to reflect the design aesthetics of Arabs. When you take a look at the Petronas Towers, it is built to meet the design aesthetics of the Malaysians. In Taipei, once the tallest building in the world, built to meet the design aesthetics of the people. It is made to meet the design aesthetics of those people who erected it in the first place. And you should not only build structures, but the structures should have your stamp. They should look like they were built by Africans. When you come to America with Europeans, Europeans built their buildings out of what? Steel. They built their buildings to resemble fortresses. If you take a look at them, look at the Empire State Building. Take a look at the old models that they used to build the government buildings on, like the Pentagon. Those things were built like what? They were built like forts. They were built like barricades. They were built like fortresses. Because those were the design aesthetics that they brought. Things that were built like fortresses. Even though they got a lot of that from us historically, the point is what they carried over was that type of design aesthetic. And when they moved into newer types of construction, what did they choose? Glass and steel. Glass and steel. You all have seen the layout of the streets in Washington, D.C. You've seen the Masonic symbols, the pentagram. You've seen all those things. The Masonic symbols. They were making sure that even if you couldn't see them at the ground level, this thing reflects our architecture and our history, even if they did get masonry from us. The point is, it reflects their sensibilities and their aesthetics. And you as Africans have been conditioned to believe that you don't have anything like that. Why? Because when I say that you should build a grocery store or a building that reflects African design aesthetics, the first thing most of you think about are dirt floors and huts. That's the first thing that you think about. You see, as Europeans, they gravitated to steel because they came from their rise to prominence was in the medieval ages. That was when they first started rising as a world power. And how did they do that? They did it with steel. They did it with blades. They did it with suits of armor. They did it by weaponizing metal. And that is why they still cling to that to this day. They weaponized the metal, and the metal was what gave them conquest around the world. They went from swords to arrows to guns. And their buildings and their architecture reflect those experiences and those sensibilities. As Africans, take a look at what we built with our pyramids. And yet we don't have any modern structures that resemble what we did. You take a look at the designs in Ethiopia of buildings there, of older buildings there, of our castles that we have built. Why are we not incorporating those design aesthetics today? Europeans build things in two colors, gray and blue, steel and sky. Or steel and water, if you want to think of it that way. Steel and water. As Africans, we should be building in a design of stone and earth. We should have, when I say design aesthetics, I'm referring to like earth tones and earth colors. The European palette in architecture is very limited. The African palette is supposed to be much broader, much wider. When was the last time you saw a flag with the colors red, black, or green? Much less two of them together. Think about that. Think about that for a moment. You've practically never seen a flag that had black on it. This is what I mean by valuing who and what you are as Africans. That's what I mean. That you stop looking at the things you built as inferior. You stop looking at the things that you built as less than, and then you start improving on them. You start seeing the value of it. But we don't teach our children that. Brothers and sisters, there's nothing wrong with a nice suit. There is nothing wrong with a nice business suit. Nothing at all. But do you understand that we didn't create that type of clothing design? That was a clothing design that was given to us. Our clothing does not reflect our sensibilities as Africans, not for most of us. Your clothing should begin to reflect your history and sensibilities. You can make it more modern, more up to date. We should also always be improving on our designs. But when I walk into a black-owned store, that store should look like it. When I see somebody saying that they're wearing African clothing, it ought to look the part. And if we design cars, a car should look the part. It should be incorporating African design elements. Hell, on the Bugatti Veyron, they took a damn horseshoe. Take a look at the, if we dare call it, a grill on the front of the Bugatti. On the front of the Veyron. It's a damn horseshoe. Take a look at it. I'm not joking. It's a horseshoe. Look at it for yourself. We should be incorporating our African design elements into what we do. That's the only kind of integration we should be doing. Integrating our culture and our sensibilities and our system and way of life into things. That's the only integrating that we should be concentrating on. I want to use that right now. I want to take this opportunity right now to investigate how you could do that. Because this is the place, you see, other people cannot do this because they can't give you the damn numbers. They can't give you the numbers, and that is why they can't do it. This is why you are disgusting and sickening when you're still following frauds and fakers, because at some point you're supposed to ask them what qualifies you to speak on these things. Tell me something I don't know. Okay, we know relationships are messed up out there, people. Enough about relationships. Let's talk about what we own, control, or passing down. Oh, but most of these people don't own anything, don't control anything, aren't passing anything down, and cannot tell you how to do it. They cannot explain to you how to do that. Let's start with something very simple here. Let's start with something very simple. Last week, I explained to you all how to rebuild the Black Wall Street. I went through it in detail, as no one has ever done with you before. A lot of people liked that broadcast, and a lot of people were elated with it. Well, tonight we go even further. Get your coons and clowns to try this, but try not to be too disappointed when they can't make it even out of the starting gate, by the way. And you should be discarding them the moment that they can't do that. Enough trying to be entertained. It's time to be empowered. Damn entertainment. Let's get some power going here. And I'm going to give you all a chance to join in tonight. Both those of you listening live and those of you who will be listening later recorded. I'm going to give you the opportunity to join in. I'm going to give you the opportunity to be a part of this. Now, right now, General Motors is working on a new large sedan for their Cadillac unit. Not because they think that more sales will come from a new large sedan, but because they are trying to increase the prestige of the Cadillac brand. And right now, the most prestigious vehicle a Cadillac has got, really, to be totally honest with you, at the street level, is the Escalade. BMW, their most prestigious vehicle right now is the 8. The i8. So Cadillac wants a larger vehicle so that they can have more prestige, so that they can say, hey, we've got Cadillac has a vehicle that does, basically they want a large Cadillac vehicle to do for Cadillac what the Bugatti did for, what the Veyron did for Bugatti and Volkswagen. That's what they want. Now I'm saying to all of you that we in black society, you can do the same thing. You can do the same thing if you get up off your ass and start doing it. So let's start there. Let's start there. First of all, as I've explained to you all before, how many people work in the assembly plant for the Bugatti Veyron, the most expensive car in the world? Right now they're selling it at 2.2 million bucks a whack for a car with only a 3-year warranty, by the way. Yow. Do you understand that's like $700,000 per year for that warranty? Unreal. In any case, how many people, since we've already decided that the Bugatti Veyron is the king of cars, alright, how do we do that? How many people work at the plant where they assemble the Bugatti Veyron? As I've explained to you all before, 17. Now you'll have 2,500 workers who work at a GM plant assembling cars. For the Bugatti Veyron, 17. That's all. 17. Now that you've got your, now that I've got your attention about that, oh, don't worry, the average Negro will just have more excuses. But now that I've got your attention, by the way, 17 people. It takes about 5 weeks to assemble a Bugatti. Once they get the engine in, the rear flap, that rear wing, which is a piece of technology all to itself, by the way. The rear wing on the Bugatti Veyron it's an engineering marvel all its own. The chassis, the radiators, and I mean radiators plural, because the Bugatti Veyron has 10 radiators. 10. Not 1, not 2, not 4, not 6, not 8. 10. And you thought doing an engine flush on your car was a headache. Once they get all those parts built, it takes 17 people 5 weeks to assemble the Bugatti by hand. 17 people, 5 weeks by hand. As I've said before, that car is not just a marvel of engineering, it is a marvel of craftsmanship. What's your excuse? TBA! Yes, former Coon listener. I can't do that there. Why not, former fraud follower? Because ain't no women in it. Somebody get this Negro out of here. But I still can't do it. Why not? I ain't got 17 friends. We are a people consumed with excuses, not solutions. Understand something, the Bugatti never would have gotten built. The Veyron never would have gotten built if every time they encountered a problem, they said, well, here's why we can't do it. They simply said, we found a problem. Here's how we overcome it. Here's how we fix it. Black people, particularly black males, have become so weak that they do not look how to fix their problems. They only look for an excuse. And when you meet someone like me who is consumed with solutions and discards people with excuses, then you don't like it. No excuses. When you tell us that you've hit a problem, the very next words I want to hear out of your mouth are supposed to be, and here's how we fix it. Here's how we overcome it. Here's how we solve it. Because if you can't say that, I've got no use for you. And there is no problem that does not have an answer and a solution. I don't want to hear it. Okay, for some of you, the Bugatti is a little bit out of your class. Let's try the Factor Aurelio. Now, that is a car that is built in the Philippines. A 21-year-old engineering student in the Philippines. Doesn't cost $2 million. Doesn't even cost $200,000. They're selling it for $37,000. That's right, they're selling it for less than a Camaro. How many guys work to assemble the Aurelio? For those of you listening, how many guys do you think work at the plant that assembles, or should I say at the garage that assembles the Aurelio? As I've explained to you all before last week, because I'm checking to see who was paying attention. 4. Just 4. At some point, you start looking like a damn lazy ass pathetic bum when you still got excuses and the Philippines are kicking your ass with only 4 guys. At some point, you now look pathetic. And it's time for us to start calling you what you are. Pathetic. No more accepting your damn excuses. Where's your solution? I ain't got no solution. Get this Negro out of here then. He just said that he's not fit to survive. I want people who are fit and built and able to survive. I'm not the least bit interested in people who have embraced extinction. Because I ain't going with you. 4 guys work to put together one Aurelio. Just 4. But wait. TBA ain't done yet. Cause you see coons and clowns and jigaboons look for excuses. So when I say the Aurelio, and you have to understand, other than the suspension, the brakes, and the powertrain system, for those of you unfamiliar with what a powertrain is, that is basically the engine and transmission. So basically the brakes and the heavy gear, the brakes, engine, and the heavy gear sets, which would come from suspensions and whatnot. After that, everything else on the car comes from the Philippines. The major pieces, you know, it's a Mitsubishi engine. The major pieces come, you know, because they don't have a place in the Philippines that basically can build an engine like that. I mean, a performance engine, like I say, they just got a performance engine from Mitsubishi. Which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. You all be amazed at how much switching and swatching goes on out there for engine parts. Even among the new car manufacturers, among the majors, you'd be surprised how much of that goes on, okay, people? So that doesn't really bother me as much. But hey, they're 4 guys in the Philippines. I mean, making a motor, they could actually build a motor themselves, but how much more time would that take? Just go buy one from Mitsubishi. What's wrong with that? What the hell's wrong with that? Nothing. Go get one. Hell, pick up a transmission while you're at it. And let's get this thing rolling. Let's get this thing rolling. Fast and Furious. All the other parts, they make themselves in the Philippines. That's right. They make everything else there in the Philippines themselves. But I got black males in America hitting me with the bummy, dusty Negro excuses. That's what we got going on over here. A bunch of black males hitting me up with the dusty, bummy excuses. Looking for somebody to bow down to. Sorry, clowns, I don't do busted and broken bummy. I don't do that. But because I specialize in taking away excuses for the expertly bummy out there, and there's a bunch of you, why can we not make another car that is performance? And you know what? I'll take away all the other excuses for you. Now, for those of you who do not know, not only do they sell Bugattis, they actually sell customized Bugattis. They've got basically exclusive editions that are done by aftermarket, resellers and whatnot, and they just do special customized versions of the Bugatti, special custom paint jobs, custom interiors, yada yada yada. Jaguar has been doing it forever. You know, your domestics, there are companies that do that. Why is it that you can't do that instead? Classic Design Concepts, as I already explained to you all before, they made a special Camaro, which is basically built to be a Pontiac, called the Fire Breather. And if you haven't looked up the Fire Breather, you can just go to Google and type in Pontiac Fire Breather, and you'll see a picture of that thing. And what they basically did was they redid the grill, redid the rear end on it, changed out major parts on the inside of it. So they did a customization of a Chevy Camaro to make it more resemble what a updated Pontiac built on a Camaro chassis would have looked like. Gorgeous car, by the way. Gorgeous car. And that'll only set you back $60,000. Now, do you know how many people that you need to do that type of customization on a Camaro? Tell me, folks, how many people do you think you need once you got, because the headlights and stuff, they of course don't make them themselves, you can buy those, but to assemble that type of customization on a Camaro, how many people do you need to redo the interior and change out the grill, the hood, and the rear on a car? How many people do you need for that? I'll give you a minute to think that over. Now, in the chat room, believe it or not, there are 2 answers that are correct. Technically speaking, you would use at least 2 people to do that. Technically speaking, you would use at least 2. But the reason why I say that there are 2 answers in the chat room that work out, technically you would need a minimum of 2 people, but in reality, 1 person could do it by themselves. Yes, it would take longer, it'd be a bit more inconvenient, but technically speaking, 1 person could do the work by themselves, technically speaking. That's right. One person. Me, myself, because I've done that kind of work before, I would want about 2 people. I would at least want to have me and another person, especially if we got to drop a dashboard and install a new one. Hopefully what you would do is be smart and simply disassemble the bottom of the dashboard. But on some cars, that's just not possible because they build it as one unit. So, you know, to do those types of customizations, you have to drop the dash altogether or change it out altogether. But assuming that we did not need to drop the dashboard, you could do those customizations. One person could do the customizations themselves. How many of you are familiar with the way that those customizations work on cars today with dashboards and exteriors? How many of you are familiar with that? I'll give you a moment here to think that over. How many of you are familiar with the way that they do customizations on the interiors and the exteriors of your cars nowadays? How many of you? Hands up. Everybody who's listening to this recorded, you can put your hands up too. Do you know how those types of exteriors, interiors, customizations are done? You have to understand. Your clowns, coons, frauds, con men, con artists, your entertainers cannot tell you. What I'm telling you is information that you can go and start your own business with. They can't tell you because they never did it. They don't know anything about it. So when you start grilling them with these kind of questions, they can't tell you. But they want you to believe that they've got some information that you could use. And then they go talking days on end, never gave you a bit of information that you could actually act on. This is the Black Channel. Whole new ball game here. Alright. Now, first of all, there are 2 different ways that these kinds of things are done. Now, usually you can use some type of poly, fiber, carbon, whatever, on the exteriors of it. Now, for example, if you go to AutoZone, there's a material called Bondo. Now, there are 2 ways that you can use Bondo. For those of you, if you ever worked at a body shop. Oh. Right. You see, a body repair shop deals with building front ends and rear ends all the time. So taking a new car that is undamaged, it's the same thing basically. Working on the front end and the rear end, only we're changing them out and reconnecting them. And the parts that we welded on, we will sand them down, we will smooth it over with Bondo, and then we will reshoot. When they call painting on a car, it's called shooting because you're using a air gun, but we will reshoot the primer, the base, the paint, and the clear coat finish. And when we get done, you will not be able to see the seam from where we welded on the new rear end on it. You won't be able to even see it. Now that's if you actually need to weld one on. There's other techniques you can use, but I'm just giving you that one. I'm just giving you just one technique that you can use, Nate. You see them doing it every day. How many guys does it take to fix your beat up, you cracked up your Toyota at the body shop? Does it take 10 people to fix the rear end? Does it take 10 people to fix the front end? Does it? Come on, folks. Does it take 10 people to do that? But you never had anybody sit you down and explain to you what you were seeing in there. If you can repair the front end on a car, you can put a brand custom new one on it. It is the exact same process. No changes, no difference. Same process. Now, in certain cases, you may want to make custom changes to the car in the interior and the exterior. And in those types of cases, what you use is a type of fiberglass sheeting. Now, what do I mean by fiberglass sheeting? It is the same material that they make surfboards and casts out of. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with how they make surfboards, or I know that you are familiar with a cast on your leg or on your arm. I know you are familiar with that. Now, if you're familiar with being able to take those rolls, because if you're familiar with a cast on your leg, you know that that's what the doctors did. They took out a roll of the fiberglass material, you melt it, not melt it, you wet it. You wet it down, and then you start putting it into whatever shape you want to put it into. Well, guess what? You can take them in strips like that and do the exact same thing to make surfboards, and you can do the exact same thing to make custom panels for the exterior and for the interior of a car. If you haven't studied at a body shop or taken a class in car repair, in car body shop repair, body repairing, and customization, I mean, they got classes at technical colleges, they'll teach you that. If you haven't, and you wanted to get in the business of making cars, that would be an excellent place to start, because you can buy an engine and a transmission anywhere. What about the rest of this car? What makes your car special and different? And guess what, folks? That's what the 4 Filipinos at Aurelio are doing. Custom exterior, custom interior. All they take is just the powertrain, brakes, suspension, maybe even the frame, although I can't verify that. But they take all the customization features, and that's what they use. That's what they got. That's what they got. There was a show, if anybody remembers it, there was a show, I can't remember if it was on Discovery Channel or Learning Channel, because I don't watch TV like that. I can't remember what it was, but there was a show, and it was a show where they would go to these body shops. It was the body shops that did customizations. I remember one in particular I was watching. It was a guy who had a Ford Expedition, and he had a, they didn't sell the Expedition looking the way he wanted, so he went to this shop, and it was a performance shop. They made it, they took a Expedition and turned it into a performance machine. They got like 400, 500 horsepower out of the engine. You know, basically he turned his Expedition into a hot rod. They gave him a custom hood, and they did customization on the doors, customization on the interior, custom on the bumpers. I mean, they totally redid this thing. I can't remember what network that was on. I want to say it was Discovery Channel, though I'm not 100% sure, and I haven't had time to look it up. But it was a show, and that was what their show was about, was doing these customizations on people's vehicles. And they would sit there and record the whole process. And they had, I think it was a Latino fellow who would redo the interiors on them. And they showed them with them laying out the sheets of fiberglass and wetting them up, and then putting them in place and smoothing them out, and then coating them over with the enamels and the finishes and whatnot. I don't know if Lex is right or not. I know the guy who was buying it was like a blonde-haired fella. He was like a sandy blonde-haired fella, so I don't know if it was Titus or not. It's been so long since I saw it, but he obviously had some money to be able to pay for a customization, a one-off customized job like that. Yes, Incandescent, it was a show like Pimp My Ride. It was like that. It was not Pimp My Ride. It was on a different network, different name, different everything. And they went above and beyond. But it was a show like that, yes. I can't remember the name of the show myself. But, I don't know if Mr. Stuffington is right or not. I'll have to look it up. He said the name of the show was Overhauling. He might be right. I'm not sure. If somebody can find it or whatever, because it was a white Ford Expedition. It was a white Ford Expedition. And it was, I want to say when they got done with it, it was like white and purple. when they got done with it, though I could be wrong about the purple part. I know it was white in a darker color. I want to say it was white and purple. But if it was Chris Titus and overhauling, everybody who's listening to me now, and like I say, if it was Chris Titus and overhauling, you might want to look that show up and take a look at that. And I've got one thing to say to you right now. 7 words. This is what white men are doing. This is what white men are doing. They are not complaining about the car company they ain't got. And they're not begging somebody else. Car don't look the way they want it. They start making their own. They open up a shop and charge other people to do customizations on it. And the interior is nicer than anything you can get from GM. And let me tell you, it's above and beyond now. Now they're putting touch screens in your car. They're putting Wi-Fi in your car. They're putting Bluetooth in your car now. They are jacking it up all the way. Negroes out here still talking about a car being murdered out. The car is black and you got black wheels on it. Congratulations, you want a damn cookie? Did you make any other changes to the car? Not really, just a new paint job. Black men are still out here going gaga for paint jobs. White men have been redoing the interior from top to bottom for 15, 20 years, and the Latinos been doing it even longer. But black men out here, just like getting a non-black female, your failures and your inability to accomplish anything has made you elevate getting a paint job now to mythic godlike status. Other people are putting in touch screens and Wi-Fi and internet and everything else. You're still sitting up here talking about stuff that was big news 25 years ago. A custom paint job and what kind of wheels you had on your car, that was big news back in 91, 93. It's 2014 and black males are still walking around with their bell bottoms on talking about how flashy they are. Get the hell out of here. And you think I'm impressed? We still doing basic stuff, trying to convince other people that our basic stuff is great. Please. Get a life. Get a brain. In other news, the Fisker car company. They were supposed to be an electric car company. They got $100 million from the government and whatnot, and then filed bankruptcy. Well, guess what? I posted this link on my Facebook group, the official Jason Black group, and if you're not a member of the official Jason Black group, you need to be. The Fisker company has been purchased by a Chinese billionaire for about $150 million rather. That's what's going on over there. They had originally gotten from the federal government, they had originally gotten $139 million. Well, guess what? The Chinese man who bought it paid $149 million. So he actually paid $10 million over the cost of what the government gave Fisker. You all can look it up. It's a nice looking car and everything. Sorry they went bankrupt. But guess what? A Chinese man has come in and bought the company for $149 million, and they're talking about they could begin selling Fiskers in the United States and Europe as soon as by the end of this year. Why? Because for $150 million, Fisker is already licensed to sell cars in the United States. They've already got the stamp of the federal government. What that means is that you have no reason not to let this man start selling cars immediately if he wants to do that. No reason whatsoever. The Chinese just bought their way into the American car market. And And it was the American federal government that gave Fisker the money to start up in the first place. And now the Chinese have just walked in the front door and got their own fully equipped, fully stocked, fully prepared car company for $150 million. But Magic Johnson is out there trying to get $1 billion to buy a basketball team. And Kanye West is trying to get a couple of $100 million to start a clothing line so that they can be employees and cogs in someone else's machine. And ain't nobody else trying to figure out how to do that. Nobody else. How many more examples do you need? How many more would you like me to give you? How many more do you think you can stomach? And then you wonder why I ain't trying to hear your damn excuses. Then you wonder why that is. I don't want to hear your damn excuses. I don't want to hear them. I'm not going to hear them, and I'm not going to take them. There are entirely too many different ways you could do that. And by the way, if you, all these Negroes are out here bragging about rims on a car, and you didn't really make any changes. We ought to have our own custom shops that make these cars look the way we want to, and it should be mandatory that every single rapper should be buying one and driving one in their videos. It should be mandatory. Mandatory. But you see, black people only check each other over the consumer goods that they buy from other people. We do not check each other over behavior. That we don't. And that is a damn disgrace. That is a disgrace. Our cars should reflect our African identity and African mind state. We are the people of the earth. Our cars should be 100% environmentally friendly. It should be perfectly in harmony and in tune with nature. We are the people of nature. Our cars' interiors should reflect that. Our cars' interiors should reflect earth tones. Our cars' interiors and designs should reflect our African spirituality. That is what they should be doing. Hotep, black woman is God. Now get them panties off. Everything is a scam and a fraud. Yeah, you can tell her get her panties off. You just can't tell her how to build anything. And you won't show her what you built for her. Oh, wait a minute, you didn't build nothing. That's why you're screaming that mess every 5 minutes, because you want to distract her from the fact that you are not actually worthy to be in her company. And you hate it. Black males hate it when I do broadcasts like this, because broadcasts like this take away all the excuses. There is no reason that you as black males could not do what those white men on Overhauling are doing. No reason whatsoever. And not only should you be doing it, you should have your own custom signature lines of those vehicles. Brothers want an Escalade, you should have a custom edition of it. Brothers want a Chrysler 300. Hell, it was a black man who originally did the redesign of the Chrysler 300. That luxury design of it, it was a black man who originally did that. They had the Chrysler 300 was nothing but it was nothing but a rebadged Dodge Intrepid. It was a black man who did the redesign of turning it into a luxury car. And look at it today. It is the flagship of Chrysler today. The flagship. Why is it that we as black men have not done another one? But you know what the reason for that is? The reason for that is because black men are not building anything. And that's the reason why we don't have one to show for ourselves. Because we're not actually building anything. We're buying things, we're not building things. It takes time, it takes hard work, it takes discipline, it takes dedication, it takes perseverance, it takes intelligence. It takes intellect, it takes ingenuity, it takes innovation to be able to do those kinds of things. Most of you were raised by bastard baby-making single broodmare super slut mammies, and those hoes only taught you how to scheme because hoes are schemers, and a schemer can only teach her son to be a schemer like she is. And that is why, if you are on Section 8 or food stamps or welfare, you are a traitor to black society. You, wench, are a traitor to our people because you are teaching your son to be the whore to white supremacy that you have always been, and you are a traitor to us. You have taught your son to be a whore and to be conquered and not to conquer anything. And that is why he drives vehicles that were given to him by non-black people and does not even think. He doesn't even think that he can make the damn seat cover for the car that he's sitting in. You've taught him to make nothing and to buy everything. You are traitors to our people. Every black male in America who is unemployed, there is no excuse for it. What does it cost for you to go to a body shop? What does it cost for you to learn how to do the fiberglass molding? What does it cost for you to learn how to use the Bondo? What does it cost for you to learn how to do customizations? What does it cost for you to learn how to do custom speaker enclosures? By the way, you use fiberglass for that too. What does it cost for you to learn how to do those things? Tell me. They got videos all over YouTube, but I'm seeing excuses from black men. What does it cost for you to learn how to do that? And what are your excuses? Because let me tell you something, brothers and sisters from around the world. A black man ain't got no excuses for doing anything it takes when it comes to getting hoes. You've never heard a black man give you an excuse for getting some female in the bed. Why, he's the world champion about that. He doesn't even need money to get a female into bed. He will figure out a way to get into her dorm room, corporate board room, classroom, restroom. He will figure out how to make that happen. You're motivated by sex. You're not motivated by power, wealth, and influence. When it comes to getting a female in the bed, no mercy, no excuses. When it comes to power, wealth, and influence, no courage, no chance. But that's going to change this century. We're not accepting those excuses this century. And those of us who are amassing power, wealth, and influence, we will have no use for those of you who are not. So if you think that you're going to carve out a place for your life at the bottom, understand something. In the 21st century, there will only be two positions for you in this world: at our side or under our feet. Those will be the two places that you will be allowed to occupy in the 21st century in black society. You will either be by our side or under our feet. But that's it. Now, you can let your mammy, who was a hoe and a coward and ignorant, now you can let her talk you into accepting being run over by other people. You can let her do that if you want to. Maybe it's just your destiny. Maybe that's just your destiny for that to happen to you. Maybe it is. And if that's the case, guess what? We got a use for you too. But for people who are listening to me, understand this is the generation of no excuses. I've gone into these things in detail, painstakingly with you, because I want you to understand there are no more excuses. I'm not going to hear them, and I'm not going to accept them, and you should not either. Find a way. There are no rules. The only rule is no excuses. Find a way. However you gotta do it, you make a way. Don't bring us your damn excuses. They are falling on deaf ears because you are repeating the mistakes and the sins of your fathers and mothers by bringing us excuses, and I'm not going to listen to them. And neither will anyone else with any sense, because we understand that we cannot overcome our problems by saying, "Oh, there's a problem, I'm going home." You overcome your problems by beating them. Those are the only people I want around us now. And this concludes tonight's broadcast of the BlackChannel.net radio. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. And until next time, brothers and sisters from around the world, remember that black is the future, and the future is uncompromising.